Hi everybody, Mark here with Couch to Camino 2026. We're at episode 16, I believe, and today we're going to be talking about rain gear. Uh, Here's a little hint, rain gear isn't really intended, most, to keep you dry. It's to keep you from getting more wet. So let's talk a little bit about expectations, different types of rain gear, and seasonal considerations, cost, all that good stuff. I may not do too long didn't listen this week because this is fairly comprehensive, and yeah, sorry if you're one of those folks that leaves right after that. Might have to just sit through it. So, anyway, like I said, we're at day 146. It's coming up fast. Got to get through the holidays, then we'll start doing training. I think next week we're going to talk about backpacks. We're heading into the kind of prime shopping season, and a lot of the big manufacturers and retails are going to start having sales. So we'll talk about backpacks next week, and then talk about silly little stuff, a week or two after that. So if you have any questions or comments, as always, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, or you can email me your question at askmeacaminoquestion@gmail.com. And it's a little breezy out here, so I apologize if you're getting some wind noise off my little microphone mouse here. So anyway, so rain gear. Going to refer back to something I said when we talked about clothing and everything else. Consider the Camino not a traditional hiking experience, but an 8-8-8 day. 8 hours of sleeping, 8 hours of hiking, 8 hours of just kind of hanging out and enjoying Spain. So, while there are lots of rain options that may seem great for your day-to-day when you're walking, may not be the best for when you're in town, hanging out, want to go to the restaurants, want to go to a museum or a castle or something, and vice versa. The coat that seems okay for going back and forth to those may not hold up to an 8-hour soaker during the day. So let's try to find a good balance here. I'm reading off my tablet here, so I'll be looking under my glasses. Sorry. Two types of rain gear. Let's call it three. Three types of rain gear. One keeps rain from hitting you at all. One keeps rain from soaking into your body. One keeps rain from soaking into your stuff. So something like an umbrella, something like a raincoat or a poncho, and something like a backpack cover. And we're going to cover all of those here fairly quickly. Number three, really a big part of rain gear is getting used to wearing it, and most importantly, getting used to putting it on. My goal is to be able to get out of my backpack, the cover on my backpack, my rain gear on, backpack back on, and I'm walking again in somewhere between 90 seconds and 2 minutes. And that's just because I've got my backpack set up where I know everything is. I've put that stuff on a couple hundred times over the years, so I'm used to it. Taking time during your training to, like once a week, if you don't actually hit rain when you're hiking with your backpack, when you're doing your training hikes with your backpack, really consider about once a week, maybe twice a week at the beginning when you're trying to get used to this stuff, setting a little alarm on your phone or something that half hour, 45 minutes into your walk, you get an alarm, you get down, you get comfortable with getting into your gear and getting back in your backpack and getting on your way. The more comfortable you are getting out there and changing into that stuff, the less of a hassle rain's going to be. That also means if on your training hikes, if it's forecast for rain, get out there in the rain. The more you're used to wearing this stuff and how it moves and how your backpack fits differently and how to adjust for that, the better off you're going to be, the happier you're going to be, and the more rain goes from something really unpleasant and kind of messes with your day to vaguely annoying and really not that big a deal. Let's see. I already talked a little bit about the different layers. The last layer I would add to that would be a Goretex sock. We talked about them in the clothing episode a little bit. A Goretex, Rocky is the brand I prefer, but I looked on Amazon online, and it feels like they're not making them again. There was like a brief period of time that they stopped making them, and they came back and made them. But there's a company called Sealskins. They make good stuff. You can find some other stuff on Amazon or just searching around hiking forums or hiking shops and such, you definitely want something that's Gore-Tex and breathable. You know, if you're my age or a little older, you know that a plastic bread bag is waterproof, and your mom may make you put those on over your socks when you walk to school in the rain. Yeah, that's not going to be okay for the Camino. So get something breathable, preferably Gore-Tex. So let's talk about seasonal stuff. Obviously, with the summer heat, you're going to want, and humidity, you're going to want a lighter option for summer, a heavier option for winter. Summer, you may be lucky enough you don't really hit more than 1 or 2 brief periods of rain. In winter, like when I was there in 2020, January, February, I had 5 to 6 days of constant rain. And yeah, it was a challenge to get through, but I'm used to my stuff, and you know, I don't mind that too much. So a heavier jacket, rain protection, is definitely something you want to think about for wintertime, because there will be more rain, and it sort of comes in regions, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Post-production Mark here. I realized at this point when I'm doing the editing, I never actually went back and talked about the different regions. So let me just throw this in real quick. For the most part, the rainiest part of the Camino is going to be when you get past Astorga. That's just an easy marker. When you get into Galicia, the far west, it does get rainy almost every season. You're going to see most of the rain from Osobreiro west into Santiago. It's just kind of unavoidable because there's a sizable ridge of mountainets there that do act as a bit of a rain shadow, and you will get more rain. Other than that, the Pyrenees at the very beginning, you will see a little bit of rain here and there. Sometimes snow. I've seen snow at the top of the Alto before Roncesvalles. I've seen snow in April, so it does happen. But anyway, the middle section's pretty much Pamplona through León, kind of dry and variable. But do be prepared when you get into Galicia, you're going to get rained on. So be ready. So, back to the video. Okay, let's talk about your gear a little bit. So your backpack, modern hiking backpacks, backpacking backpacks from major manufacturers like Osprey, Gregory, Deuter, REI, all of the big ones. Usually if they really need a cover, they kind of come with them. If not, the manufacturer is sort of saying, yeah, you should be fine. But in my experience, if you're going to go in fall, winter, early spring, where you are going to be going through a lot more rain, a backpack cover is a really good idea. Even an aftermarket one. I know all of the big companies, Osprey, Deuter, all those companies, they make dedicated backpack covers that you can get. They're, you know, $20. It's worth that a little extra bit of insurance against getting your stuff wet. After that, if you can afford it, and I'll show you here in a few minutes some options, get a waterproof container for everything that goes in your backpack. Your clothes, your technology, your shower kit, all of that. That way you've got the backpack cover, the backpack, the individual stuff in dry bags inside your backpack. That's 99% of the time going to keep your stuff fairly well dry, because nobody wants to put on wet undies when you get to the albergue. That makes for a grumpy pilgrim. If you want one extra layer of protection, I always, every single Camino, I throw a trash bag from the kitchen in the bottom of my bag, my backpack, and if I've got a day where it's going to be rain, hard driving rain, I put all those dry bags, everything inside a trash bag, roll the top, stuff it in my backpack, put the rain cover on, I'm ready to go. I like belt, suspenders, belt, and suspenders to make sure my stuff stays dry. Inner bags, trash bags. Let's talk about on your person. The very last layer is you're going to want something that's going to keep your important stuff dry. Most phones are fairly waterproof now, water resistant, so I wouldn't worry about getting a rain cover for your phone or anything, unless you have like an older iPhone or an older something that is a little more twitchy about rain. Other than that, things like your pilgrim's credential and your passport, all of that, you want to keep that dry. So either keep that in a dry bag in your backpack or on your person in a dry bag. And I'll show you a couple options here in just a second. So that's about it. Think about we're layering, just like we layered our socks to prevent blisters, we're layering our rain protection to keep us from getting soaking wet. The downside is we are going to get wet. We'll talk about that real quick. I'm going to do a little mini ramble. I said I wasn't going to, but like I said, I don't really script these. I just kind of run through these. So let's talk a little bit, and then I'll show you my favorite thing that I'm drinking out here, and then we'll talk about an interesting place. So let's start with the very top outside. If you're going in summer, something as simple as one of these little weighs nothing El Cheapo travel umbrellas. This is a little tiny guy. It's fine for, I would take this in the summer. If I was going to go in late May through end of August, I would probably just take this to help out a little bit. Inexpensive, they work. They're not going to stand up to big winds, but you know, it's a little better than nothing. If you really want to get spicy, you can get a larger hiking umbrella. I picked one of these up at Shields or something. Fairly inexpensive. Again, not going to hold up to a bad storm. You don't want to put this sort of thing up when you've got howling winds hitting you. But if you've got a good rain, really a good option. And you look online, you can find versions of these that are dedicated hiking umbrellas that have a silver aluminized or a silver reflective barrier on the outside and black on the inside. It makes them insanely efficient shade, portable shade when you're hiking in the summertime. If I was going to go back and do a summer Camino, I would definitely get one of these with the silver reflective. I've tried to use this as a sun umbrella here at the farm when it's been over 100. It doesn't work. Works fine for rain, doesn't work for sun. So think about any season, one of these in the dead of winter and one of these in summer may be a great option. But if you could keep the water from hitting you in the first place, makes the job of your backpack covers and coats and everything else a little easier. So moving down, let's talk about your basic body covering. You've got choices of jackets, coats, I don't know what the difference is, one's longer, one's shorter, whatever, and ponchos. A lot of people really love ponchos. I'm not a huge fan. I haven't had good experience with them. I've used them hiking and hunting and doing some other stuff, and they've never worked for me. Mainly because the wind blows and they just blow all over the place, and unless you've belted them, I don't know, it's never worked for me. A lot of people really love the Altus that is custom made to go over you and your backpack, hangs down to like your mid calves. Here, I'll put up, there's a picture. Yeah, there's, they apparently do work. I've just never wanted to drop the money to try one. Plus, every time I see somebody outside a bar or something, they look like a giant pain in the butt to get into, to get out of. But if you're somebody that absolutely wants to stay bone dry the entire time, that may not be the worst option for you. Jackets and coats. So I've got here beside me a couple. Let's start with the lighter coat. And I'm not saying these are the ones you should buy. These are just examples of when I talk about different weights of coats. This is a Visp from Enlightened Equipment. It's insanely light. This thing just weighs a couple of ounces. It's got a storm zipper. It's got a hood. Good Velcro around the cuffs to keep the wind from blowing rain right up your arms, which is really unpleasant. One thing you definitely want to look for in your coats is ventilated. And ventilated meaning the fabric breathes something like a Goretex and something like pit zips. This raincoat has zippered gussets in the pits. This On a hot or warm day, you unzip those, and as you're moving, it acts as a natural bellows to get that hot vapor of your sweat out of your body. It really helps a ton. I've had raincoats without them. I've had raincoats with them. I will not go back to raincoats without them because I'm a big sweaty monkey, and it's pretty miserable. So this coat, I've worn this on a couple of Caminos. It's a great coat. It's never wetted out on me, meaning after 7-8 hours of rain, it was still perfectly dry on the inside, except for where I've been sweating. The downside of this one is it's lightweight, and because it is very breathable, this is not the choice I would make for a cold weather Camino, say in the wintertime, early spring, or late fall, like November through the end of March. I'd be a little worried, well, nervous taking this one. What I would take in the winter would be this. This is a Marmot Precip Eco. I don't know what the Eco means. I think they use some recycled stuff or more earth friendly. It has all the same things that the VIFS does. Storm seal on the zipper, good Velcro on the cuffs, drawstring at the waist to keep wind from blowing up. I've got the hood tucked in. Something important on the hood. Now, both of these jackets, the hood has an adjustment for around the face to keep it from being too baggy, because if I'm wearing my hat, I lost my hat. If I'm wearing my hat, I want that hood to be right there. I don't want it slipping down over the bill of my hat, so I have to keep pushing it up, and I don't want to get it blown off. So both of these in a good quality raincoat will have an adjustment for the face opening, down around the neck, and also some sort of adjustment to pull the crown back to keep it from bagging and coming down off your forehead. So this one uses a Velcro tab system. That one uses a little elastic shock cord. Both work great. Take some time to mess with. That's part of why I said get out there and practice with this stuff, so you can get it all adjusted so when you're turning your head, it's very fluid, it's very natural, it's not dragging your head off or dragging your glasses off or something like that. So either one of these, really good option. Like I said, October through April, I would use this. Just because it's a fantastic warmer, drier coat for me. And let's talk about, now that we've just talked about light and cold, or the lighter and heavier, your coat is actually a really good wind layer too. If you have a very, very windy day, throwing on, like this is what I wear. I rarely, unless I'm going in the dead of winter, I don't take a big puffy coat. I take this and I layer this over it if it's very windy or very cold. These two layers give me great protection. You definitely want to make sure that when you buy your rain gear, if you're going to wear something like this under it, if you're going to wear a puffy coat or a puffy vest, anything you're going to be wearing under it, you need to make sure it fits, and it fits correctly. So if you can take all that stuff to Shields, REI, Academy, wherever you're going to shop for this stuff, do that. If not, just go ahead and buy maybe a size larger. See if that works. You may even have to go 2 sizes larger depending on how much stuff you're trying to put under one of these. Rain jackets are usually cut pretty generous because they know people are going to want to put stuff under them, but still, be sure you try this on over your stuff and make sure you don't have any bind and pinch points. So, moving down, and we'll probably go back and talk about those a little more. Moving down the body, your lower legs. Very honestly, most of my Caminos, I don't take rain pants or anything like that. The shorts that I have are rapid dry. They're super lightweight. They dry in just a few, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of walking, and they're dry again. So I just don't worry about it that much. Now, when I go in the fall and winter, November, blah, 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 I would take something like, particularly in winter. So these are a pair of rain pants that are just nice looking, nice looking, almost a khaki, but they're green. They are 100% waterproof. They're a company called Little Donkey Andy from off Amazon. I've had lots of stuff from them. Again, I don't get paid by these folks. This is just the stuff that I use. I love these because I can throw these on with a black tech polo, go hit a couple of restaurants, go hit a museum. I can go to church if I decide to. These are a great option. So if you look on Amazon or any of the other big retail websites that have hiking and walking and sport stuff, you're gonna find waterproof pants. Just make sure they're not like a slicker style pant from Helly Hansen or something like that. A fantastic option. Absolutely love these things. The lighter version of that would be something like a dedicated harsh weather pant. These are Copperfield wind pants that I got from the same company that made the Visp, the black coat. I know they look like they're made of trash bags, but I cannot put my finger through these. I've actually tried down on the leg to punch a hole through them. I can't. These are incredible. So they call these wind pants, but they have worked for me fairly well as rain pants for the fall and spring season. We'll definitely be taking these instead of the big heavy pants. They're not something I would ever wear around town because frankly you'd look ridiculous, but while you're hiking, they're just fine. So if you don't want to take a dedicated pair of heavy rain pants, something like a light wind pant or similar, that could be a really good option. Looking around here, we already talked about those. So when you're looking at this rain stuff, you don't have to buy really expensive stuff. There are, like if you're buying, I'm not even going to say the names. If you're buying some stuff, it could cost you upwards of $500-600 to get your rain gear, which is ridiculous. Most of my coats are under, those two at least are under $200. They work well, and so far I've worn them for 5-6 years each, and they're fine. I wear them around here on the farm. I do chores in them and go feed the animals in them. I mean, they hold up just fine. So don't be afraid of spending a little bit of money. I would stay away from things like frog togs or the cheapo stuff you can find at Walmart or on Amazon. That stuff, like I have frog togs that I use hunting and camping and such. And yeah, they do keep you dry, but they're swampy. They don't breathe. They're crackly. They're terrible. I was going to grab my hunting ones out, but I hate them so much I didn't want to. So don't spend a whole lot of money on that stuff. So speaking of not spending a lot of money, when we talked about how to weatherproof your stuff, your backpack and your stuff inside your backpack, I mentioned dry bags. So this is a dry bag. It's a Dyneema or Cuban fiber dry bag. I get these from Z-Packs. They're a great company. I love these. I've got multiples of them. I pack everything in these. I usually have 3 to 4 of them with all my stuff in them. They Velcro, they roll down, they're completely weatherproof, but they do breathe a tiny bit, so it does let a little bit of vapor out, which is nice. But they're a little bit expensive. If you're not going to do another outdoor activity, don't go buy these. It's kind of silly. In all honesty, there is nothing this will do that a gallon Ziploc won't do. You could pack in 3 or 4 gallon Ziplocs just as well as one of these. It's a heck of a lot cheaper. You probably have these darn things in your kitchen already, so you don't have to worry about it. Just throw your stuff in these, and then if you're really worried, throw all that in a trash sack and put it in your backpack. It's probably going to be just fine. Especially if you're doing a shorter Camino in the summer. If you're just going to start in Sarria to do the 100-kilometer run, or shorter anywhere else, and in the summer, you know, some Ziplocs just may be the ticket for you. You know, don't spend a lot of money. I would rather you save the $60-80 on dry bags and use Ziplocs and have some good breakfasts and have some good lunches and dinners and go see a museum or something. Go spend that money in better places. So little accessory stuff, things for your credential and your wallet. I showed this in one of my things. This is a little wallet. This is a waterproof Dyneema wallet. It's big enough to hold a credit card, some cash, and loose change. these are fine. You actually find these on Amazon now. You can find little, like, sometimes they call them surfer wallets, just little waterproof travel wallets. A really good thing. Throw it in your pocket, throw it inside your inside pocket in your rain gear, and you're going to be fine. You can also find larger document size or envelope size Dyneema or Cuban fiber waterproof pouches. They have a waterproof zip. This is just big enough that I can easily put my copy of my passport and my pilgrim's credential. They fit in there. I zip it up. Oh, there go the neighbors. And yeah, I've gone through raging storms with this inside my coat and really not had an issue with it. I'll put my wallet back in here. So, a couple of last little things. If you're going in the colder weather, when the colder months, you know, we talked about, you're going to see a lot more rain. It's going to be chilly. Using your rain gear as a smart wind layer is really important. If you saw the way, you know that the beginning is because he dies due to exposure, getting caught in a storm, and that can happen. I was walking into Hontanes on the Meseta, yeah, Hontanes, and I got hit by, from the rear. I wasn't paying attention. I got hit by a squall. It was like 70 degrees, not that big deal. I got soaked before I could get my stuff on. And I knew I was only about 5 kilometers from Hontanes, which I was going to stop there to get some coffee and lunch anyway, so I didn't worry about it. As soon as I descended into the valley, the temperature dropped. You know, it was in the shade, temperature dropped 15, 20 degrees. By the time I got to the bar, got out of my stuff, I was shivering. It took me about an hour to get warmed back up. So, you know, really pay attention and use this stuff, use the wind gear to keep you alive if you do get wet, or use the rain gear to keep you alive as a wind layer. One thing I would add to this whole mess in the wintertime would be wind gloves. These are actually wind mittens. And these are, I wear these in the rain too. These are just featherweight. Who are these from? These might be from Enlightened Equipment. I don't really remember. So they're just a super lightweight. They keep my paws dry. They got a drawstring to keep the rain, or to keep the wind from blowing my rain up them. These over a pair of merino wool gloves or tech gloves really do a good job keeping my paws warm. You know, in wintertime, you might want to consider something a little heavier, but these will help out. The last thing I'll add is, if you're going to go in wintertime, please consider taking one extra layer of protection. So this is an emergency bivvy. This is essentially a emergency blanket. You've seen the silver ones they give out at disasters and marathons, and usually my half marathons were disasters, so I always got one. This is a sleeping bag version of that. It's orange on the outside, silver on the inside. They reflect an enormous amount of your body heat back into you. It acts as a wind barrier. So if you're going in the winter, although, you know, I said in one of my previous videos, you're never really that far from help. I can think of times in the winter, like when I was walking through the Rioja in a blizzard, that I didn't see, you know, the farmers weren't out working their fields. I didn't see another pilgrim for days at that point. That, if I would have taken a fall or something, that could have been a little icky. So having this tucked into the side pocket of my backpack, it's just a nice bit of insurance. They're not that expensive, and they do help. So for your rain stuff, that's about it. Like everything else, it's hugely personal. If you want to try a poncho, grab one early and try it through the first month of your training. See if it works for you. If not, go ahead and change to something else. You know, the other reason I'm not a fan of ponchos is I wander around town a lot in my downtime. And I don't know, wearing a poncho just makes me feel a little more like a hiker than I want to feel when I'm goofing off in a fun little Spanish village or something. So just having one of these dedicated raincoats or jackets just feels a little more, I don't want to say dressy, but a little less hikey. That makes any sense. So, but totally up to you. There are no right answers. There are no wrong answers, except for the Altus poncho. Nah, I should say that. People love those things. That's about it. If you have any questions or comments, I'm sure I missed something. I've recorded this video a couple of times, and I haven't liked any of them that I've recorded, so I'm just kind of messing around with this. Let's talk about my favorite stuff today. So it's been sitting over here getting cold because I've been yapping at you. So I'm drinking coffee today. Café con leche, which we talked about early on. Coffee with milk, steamed milk. And the question is that I've heard, why is Spain so devoted with coffee with milk in it? Basically a latte or a cappuccino, and America isn't. America, you go anywhere not anywhere, but you go to France or Spain, you have to ask for an Americano, they know you mean a black coffee with no sugar, no milk. It's just the way it is. So there's a really good reason for that in Spain. Spain years ago, because, now I'm going to blame the dictatorship, because I'm pretty sure that's why, but Spain's economy and import ability was not the greatest, so they had real trouble as a semi-closed economy to get access to really good coffee. The coffee they got was not great, and it had to be transported really rough. It wasn't stored well, so they came up with a process called torrefaction. And I have a bag of torrefacto coffee. Now, what's different about torrefacto? Torrefacto, back in the day and still today in Spain, it's some of the cheapest coffee you can get on the planet. You get the cheapest, gunkiest stuff you can. You roast it, and partway through the roasting, you stop, you shut the roaster down, and you spray sugar water all over the beans. Then you roast them again. And sometimes I believe they do it a second time. What it does is it puts a shiny, hard, burned sugar shell over the coffee. Seals the beans. It means they store longer. They're easier to transport longer distances because there's really not the time crunch that a regular green coffee bean has. And in the days before serious ability to vacuum pack and do atmospheric packing like we do with modern coffees, it was a solid way to get reasonably bad coffee to the people so they could have some coffee. It is still relatively unknown outside of Spain. Hunter Brothers here, this was the first time I've seen an American company do a torrefacto, just because it is so weird. When you get to Spain, if you just have an espresso, which I recommend, it's going to come with a sugar or two. This stuff is so burned and bitter tasting that you almost have to have sugar in your coffee. Even if I don't drink sugar in my coffee, but torrefacto, I always have to dump a sugar tube or two in. It's just the way it is. It's still the default coffee in Spain. Unless you're going to a Starbucks, or there's a lot of specialty coffee places now that have better coffees. I personally like this stuff. But after you've spent time in Spain and you've had café con leche day after day after day, when you come home and you have the same thing, it doesn't taste right. And the biggest reason is torrefacto coffee. Taking this horrible burnt sugar coffee, combining it with the right milk under the right temperatures, with the right grind and the right pressures, and you get something kind of magical. It's amazing stuff. I'm so glad I was able to find this. So that's what I've been drinking. That's one of my favorite things. Spanish coffee will change your life, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. Because it can be rough. There's some of those smaller bars where, man, those bartenders they're just trying to get people out the door or get coffee in them, get them out the door, and man, that stuff is brutal. So enjoy, try it, and try it lots of different ways. Try it with sugar, try it with a sugar substitute or something, try it with extra milk. Just play around with it. You're gonna find a version you like if you like coffee. It's just a matter of trying it out. Bonus if you're drinking it from a coffee cup from a company called Cucujumusu, which is a Basque-run. They're a graphic arts company that they do a lot of fun cartoon cartoon critter stuff. They've got a shop in Pamplona. There's a fairly large shop where I bought this in Madrid. I think there's a couple of more around, but take a look. They're kind of neat. So, speaking of Pamplona, my favorite place is in Pamplona, and it is called Caramelos Artesanos Garante. That's right. I had to read it because I could never remember how to say it. I just know it as the candy store. So down on the main drag, and again, I'm not going to tell you where it is. I want you to go on Google Maps and figure it out. On the main drag that goes up into where the main stretch of Pincho's bars, kind of out by Gaucho that I talked to you about. There's a mom and pop, this Garate, this mom and pop candy store. They make everything in-house. Their gelays, their sugared and spiced nuts, hard candies. They have an entire back wall of hard candies that are amazing. Flavors you don't see really outside of Spain. You know, mulberry. When I was there in 22, I picked up a bag of honey. Being a beekeeper, I love local honey stuff. They had done a batch out of honey, and they had done a batch out of bee pollen. Hard candies that the bee pollen had been dissolved in. Really fun stuff. Great people. They give out free samples. They even have shoes. Look, shoes. Don't wear those on Camino. We should have talked about that in the shoe episode. Fantastic folks, and really getting a bag or two of their candy. It's not hugely expensive. Really nice, particularly the climb from Pamplona up the Alto de Perdón and then to Puente La Reina. Really nice to have a bag of candy because that walk can get a little old. So if you get a chance, stop in. And I'm just going off I'm winging this, but when you're facing the door of the candy shop, I think about 6 or 7 doors to your right. If I remember correctly, on that same street, there's a mom and pop cookie store that they bake everything right there, and they do some traditional Basque cookies and little yummy pastries and stuff. So if you're up around in the morning or on your way out, if you're on that main street, it's not the street that the Camino's on. Definitely think about stopping into those folks too. They're pretty neat. While we're talking about Pamplona, I'll put a picture up. You're going to see these all over Pamplona. You're going to see them. They're riveted. They're epoxied and riveted to the streets. Pamplona suffered mightily during the Spanish Civil War back in the 30s. And those brass plaques are where local citizens were killed. That is the spot they died on. And they're all over the streets of Pamplona. And they have the person's name, when they were born, and the date they died on that spot. Out of respect, I try not to walk on them. They're fairly small. They're like a 3-inch by 3-inch little bronze plaque. But look down and look how many there are, and look how many there are in groups. If you haven't gotten a chance to study up on the history of Spain, ancient Spain, modern Spain, and the Spanish Civil War, I really recommend you do. Tell you what, next week I'll recommend 3 books that I think are great to listen to or read before you go, and it'll give you a better idea of why Spain can be so damn quirky at times, because they still got a lot of stuff holding over from some very bad times in the past. It's a beautiful country. In another lifetime, I would have had a chance to retire there, but I've built an amazing life here, so I'm going to stay here. Anyway, that's it for this week. We're heading to about 40 minutes. I hope I've given you a brief overview. Now, when we get into March, just before I leave, I'm going to do a complete deep dive. I will show you every single item that I'm going to take. So we'll talk about my rain gear. We'll talk about my wind, all that stuff. So if you feel like I really didn't cover it well enough, don't worry. We're going to cover some more stuff as we go. Next week, backpacks. It's going to be a fun one. Going to be a little bit of a long one, but you'll make it. I just know. So everybody have a great week. Hope the weather's good where you are. It was down to 30. Actually, it was 29 this morning. It was pretty nice. I tried to I tried to take you for a walk with me, but the sun was so bright it kept washing out my camera, so it didn't work very well. So next day we get a cloudy, some cloud cover, I'll take you for a walk and we'll talk about some stuff. But anyway, I'll see you next week.